Hello, everyone,
And welcome back to another video.
and the topic is customer service in Barbados versus customer service in Canada. Controversy.
Well, I feel like we've kind of touched on this topic before. I just cannot remember if we did. But even if we did, I guess we can always talk about it again. Maybe there's something that we haven't said before. But yeah, Tony, what do you think about it?
Well, in Barbados, my beautiful island, love you to pieces. But I find a lot of businesses in Barbados have zero to no customer service. They give you attitude. You barely ask them a question, and they start to snap. They look. They roll their eyes. They carry on. They behave out of the ordinary, and I do not understand why professionalism is not done in the workplace. Yes, we know that the customer is always right. The businesses always teach you that the customers are always right. But the thing about it is, you need to treat your customers with respect. The same way you want respect, I should be given respect. In comparison now to Canada, Canada has phenomenal customer service. Whatever problem you have, they're going to try to find a solution for it. Whether it's to give you something extra or to speak with the management or whatever, and they are very calm, very polite, and you actually do good business with them. Um, for me personally, even because I was working in a nursing home before, even though we had to deal with difficult family members, we were always taught that the family members are always right. And we have to always respect them, and we have to try to give them what they wanted for their loved ones that was in the home or whatever, right? Um, in Barbados now, on the other hand, um, because it's a case whereby now the family members are coming at us as nurses, and I know a lot of the Bajan public complains about nurses and stuff like that. There are some nurses, yes, I will have to say that they really need to know how to be professional, because you don't have to behave like a dog or like be snapping at people. You just have to explain to people what is going on with them. So yes, there are some nurses that I would say that they don't have any manners, but there are some nurses that do have manners, and I am one of those that have manners, and I know many others that have manners too. But you also need to know that as a customer is always how you come at people too, because that's another factor too that causes people then to react. Because you can't come at me and say like a dog, and then don't expect me to get on like a pit bull. I mean, it should not be, but that's human reaction, you know. But what I would say is that Barbados needs to do better. 110% need to do better with their customer service. I shouldn't have to go into the supermarket and get on like I begging. Why spending my money in the supermarket? You understand? I spending my money at the for example, a government institute. I ain't crying to you so you could take my money, but I want you it. But I gotta give it because I gotta pay my bills. So y'all need Barbados needs to do better.
Alright, well, what I would say is that, first of all, Barbadians are very friendly people on a whole, like, just naturally. We're friendly, we are jovial, we are kind. Um, but when it comes to customer service, not for all people, but for a lot of people, it sucks pretty much. Tony said something about customer. Tony actually said a lot of points that I could have touched on. I probably don't remember half of them, but the point is, she talked about customer service. She talked about the customer is always right. Um, I don't know if it is just a case of the customer is always right. I don't know if in Canada we are taught like customer is always right, but I think um, definitely in Barbados, that's a no, because the customer can't be always right and then you treat the customer like crap. That can't work. That's actually the opposite. It would be more like
The
the
employee
employee
always
always right,
right.
because some of these people when you call the management, they back the employee and they don't give you any type of satisfaction. In Canada, however, I would have to say it's not the case that the customer is always right, because there's some situations where the employee is right and the employee will go all out because they know they're right in terms of representing themselves. And I believe as an employee, you should always represent yourself if you know you're right. If you're not wrong, don't act like you're wrong. If you know that you're right, stand up for yourself, because other people aren't going to stand up for you. Though the company might try to please the customers, at the end of the day, if you're right, you're right. But what I would say about here is that the employees or whoever else, management, whoever, tend to make sure that their customers are satisfied. And that's one of the biggest things. If they can't help you in some way, they offer an alternative. Even if it's something as simple as, you having a wrong order at a fast food restaurant and you have to go back and, they'll just switch what the meal you had and give you a hotter meal. And if you're at a certain like place of business and they cannot genuinely help you, then they're gonna apologize to you a million times. They're genuinely sorry. They show concern. They ask if there's something else that they can do to help. It's like they just genuinely feel sad that they can't help you out. And that's super big and important, because you want to know that whoever business you are about to step into, or you're about to use their services or whatever, you want to know that they care.
True.
You don't want to feel like, as Tony said, you're just coming in and you feel like you have to beg to spend your money in their establishment. And that brings me to another point home in Barbados, because we actually come home very frequently, so we know what we're saying. We're not just like people that are in Canada for like 5, 6, 7 years and never come home. Like, we're home every year. So, um, the thing is, what I would say is that the next point is that we need to recognize home in Barbados, that you need to be pleasant to everybody and treat everybody the same way.
True.
When it comes to tourists,
Mhm.
they'll go all out. White tourists is what I'm talking about. Or you don't even have to be a white tourist. You just have to be a white person. Because sometimes we have this messed up mentality that we assume all white people are tourists, and we assume all black people are Bajans.
Bajans.
And that's not the case. There are black tourists and there are white locals. But as soon as you see somebody that looks white, all of a sudden you put on the whole facade. The whole, oh, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah.
And a
Can I
whole
help
different
you?
accent.
Whatever, whatever. And this treatment should be extended to everybody. I remember one time I was back home and I had a situation too where um, my mother was speaking. My mother came into the library and she said, "Good evening" to the security guard in there 3 times. And 3 times she ignored my mother. And I had to carry her in after that, because I was like, are you serious? Now you're in an establishment, you're supposed to be in a place of high stature in the sense that you're a security guard, you're supposed to be watching out for the place, and then you don't even have enough manners to say good evening, but then you're going to look at a child and tell them they ain't got no manners? Because the children are following the examples of the
True.
adults. So how are you going to tell a child when they come in, because at the time children used to frequent the area too, obviously it's a library, how are you going to come and tell a child, oh, you are mad, you this, you that, you got a million things to say about a child, but then you're not even watching your behavior? And as I told her, because the same time the police came in as well, and so as I said, if that was my ex, at the time he was my husband, so I said, if that was my husband who happens to be white, y'all would be kissing his behind. And that's the reality, right? But for somebody now that is a local, you don't even have the common decency just at saying good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. And that used to be a big thing in our country back in the day. Like, if you see elders, if you see anybody, you go to the bus stop, you see people, you say good morning, good evening, good night. Obviously, I guess that gone through that gone down the hill now or whatever. But that was our culture back
Back
then.
in the day, it's true.
And the thing is, as soon as you see somebody that you think looks a certain way or represent a certain thing, you change your behavior. But when it becomes a local, it's a different story. But the most important thing that people need to recognize is that tourists come and tourists go. But Bajans live there and they frequent the area on a regular basis. So if you go to Chafat, you might have a couple of tourists whenever they're there. If they're there for a week, for 2 weeks, whatever. But then you are gonna have Bajans that are living in Barbados um who frequent this area or come to Chafat. For example, I just call Chafat as a way to be, but come to Chafat every Thursday, every Friday, every Saturday. They're the ones that are giving you business.
Right.
Like, it boggles my mind that you could treat a local like crap, but yet the locals are the ones that are really keeping your establishment open because the tourists only come for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, and then they head back to their country. So yeah, you appreciate the tourist business, but at the same time, you need to appreciate the locals' business too. It has to be across the board.
True. I agree with everything Shanita said. Shanita made some PowerPoints. I have to clock that too. But yeah, the locals are who are the ones who are keeping your business alive. You might say, oh, but the tourists keep our business alive too. But how often is the tourist coming? They might only come once to your establishment because they probably tell themselves, well, I'm in Barbados, I'm going to try a bunch of food places and blah, blah, blah. But when you got the support of the locals and the locals coming to you every week, tell me why you treating me like, treating me bad. Why you not telling me good morning? How are you doing? Like how you would treat the tourists or a white person. You know, I find we have that mentality in the Caribbean. I can't even speak about Barbados only. You got it's in the Caribbean too because like I remember when Shanita went to Antigua and the immigration officer was very rude. Immigration was rude to you, right?
Yes, but I have to say that was coming back to Canada.
Right,
He was a little rude. He wasn't like over the top, but he was asking me like at the time I was a PR. He was like, I guess he didn't think I was a PR. Well, he didn't see my thing, so he was like, oh, when I told him I was going back to Canada, he was like, oh, um, are you like, do you have status in Canada or some nonsense? And I said, yeah, I'm a PR, and he humbled himself quickly afterwards. But I have to say that Antigua was awesome, and the Antiguans were amazing. They were extremely nice, and I would never allow one person or one little experience to diminish my entire experience there from the time I reached on Antigua Sol to pretty much almost the time I left, because obviously he was just a bad taste for that moment. But honestly, throughout the entire time, from the time I reached there till throughout the entire time, every single person I met was super nice to us. They were friendly, they were helpful, they were, jovial. I love Antigua so much at this point that I just keep saying I have to go back to Antigua because my experience was just amazing. And that is the experience I want people to have with Barbados as well. Continue.
Yes, but it happens. It happens in the Caribbean. Yes, Chantel would have had a great time in Antigua or whatever. But even hearing from other locals from their like other countries locals, I don't know if that makes sense. But like somebody from Jamaica, somebody from Trinidad or whatever, it's always the same story whereby they're not treating the locals well or whatever in terms of customer service or whatever. But Section is polaring about Antigua. I'm gonna polar about Guadeloupe.
This is not a video about the islands we visited.
But honestly speaking, like you're going to go somewhere where you're treated well,
Exactly, you're gonna want to come
and
back.
you're going to want to come back.
Correct.
Right? I can't really talk about Guadeloupe. It was just saying sort of jealousy, but I can't really talk about Guadeloupe because I am not French, so the communication was a little difficult. So thank God I had a friend there or whatever. But the point of the matter is, you're going to go back and visit where you think. So the reality is, I think that customer service needs to be better in my country, Barbados. And as Shinta would have rightfully said, the people are very nice, very helpful, very caring, as per all places. But it's just when you going into these establishments that does really deter your mind.
Yeah, and as I said before, like you can't assume that because a person is black that they are not a tourist. And even if they are not a tourist, it doesn't matter, But many times they are tourists. And
Correct.
then you treat them like dirt. And then they go back home having the experience of you, well, Barbados this, Barbados that, Barbados the next, Barbados the third. And really, we are a friendly people.
Yeah.
We are very, very helpful. My people are one of the most friendly, helpful people I could ever come across. You could be struggling, you might not know where to go, whatever. We are so fast to help people. So it's sad that people might not experience that, but they might go into an establishment and experience somebody snapping at them just because they assume that they're from the same country. And then another thing is stop when you do find out that your other person is from a different country, then don't switch up. Like just treat everybody equal.
Equal,
You know,
exactly.
like for me, honestly, in terms of customer service, I can't say that I've had a bad experience in terms of customer service home. I've always been fortunate to have a pretty good experience, but I have heard a lot of horror stories from other people, and also even from my parents who live home, so they have to deal with different people at different times with different establishments, etc. And like it's just ridiculous. And then at the end of the day, like even me, for example, one time I was going town and we went into a store and me and my mom wanted to buy stuff. Obviously, I speak my dialect or whatever, so I was speaking normal, like how I usually speak in my Bajan dialect. And and then the person in the store was talking normal, acting however, whatever. She wasn't rude. She was just talking like regular. But then for the minute, like, I had to buy something duty free for I think I was taking back something, I can't remember. I bought something duty free, regardless. And when she saw my Canadian license, like she did a whole 360. Like she was a total different person. Her voice changed. Her voice went up, and it was like, so da 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 da, and I was like just so like a total switch. But I don't mind the kindness. I love the kindness. I love the kindness. I just want us to extend kindness
You just want
to
everybody.
everybody.
True.
Be kind to everybody. And as Tony said, you give what you get to at the same time. So you can't expect as a customer either to come into people's store and act like you want at and be like a grouch and then expect royalty treatment either. It goes both ways. You have to be kind if you want people to be kind. Because there are some times when people decide to act like whatever and then think now that they're entitled to have this top treatment and it doesn't work like that.
Correct. Correct.
But I think on both sides everybody just needs to treat others how they would like to be treated, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your status, regardless of your race, regardless of your age, regardless of all these different things.
Agreed. Agreed. And even like I remember too, cause I was really excited to do duty free, cause at that point I had not gotten my PR and stuff like that, and that was my first time actually coming back to Barbados since I was living up here in Canada. And to be honest with you, I guess hearing my accent, cause I talk like this every single day. Um, the people were nice. They did give me good treatment or whatever, and it so happened that I knew the lady that was dealing with me, so it was still good that she treated me well as well. But then going back then in 2025 too, is like, I had a helper, a friend of mine who wanted something duty free as well, and the people were fairly nice, and um, you know, I was very elated to, show my license, and nobody didn't change. They all were nice always. So I had good experiences in certain establishments, but when I was living in Barbados now, I would have had some experiences where people were snapping, and I just ask questions. I just want to know something. You understand? I have more experience back home with the snappiness, I guess a little bit more than Shanita, because Shanita left Barbados a long time versus me. But yeah, I got the snaps too.
Right? And
It's
that's a
so
very
rude.
that's a big point too, because that's another point that shows a big difference between uh, Barbados and Canada, because here in Canada, if you go to an establishment or you call an establishment on the phone, you could ask 100 questions. These people are gonna sit on the phone. They're going to be patient. They're going to listen to you. They're going to answer you. And if they can't answer you, they are going to find help that, somebody else that knows the answer that can answer you. They're not going to get impatient. You know what I mean? And then they go right throughout the entire conversation until you are done. You say, thank you very much. Thank you for your help, whatever. You know? But in Barbados, if you ask 2 questions, 3 questions too much,
I'm telling you,
is a problem.
it's a big issue.
But you have the right to ask questions to find out more about the products or the services that you want to get, especially if you're paying for it. So if you have a problem with that, too bad. But you are running a business and people are trying to get your service or they're trying to buy your products. And therefore, you have to be patient enough to answer their questions.
Exactly.
And if you don't understand or know their questions, then you have to tell them, you know what, I'm so sorry, I can't answer that for you right now, but I will get back to you as soon as I can get the answer for you. Because there's nothing wrong with not knowing. You might not know the answer right away. For example, if you are a cashier and somebody asks a question about a product and you don't know the answer to that question, you can just say, can you please hold for a second? Put the person on hold, or customer representative, whatever. Put the person on hold and ask somebody else that know. Then go back and tell the person the answer. There's nothing wrong with that. People do it all the time. You don't know everything. But it is about you being snappy-ish and carrying on because people are asking more questions that you're willing to answer. No, it does not work like that. I would not frequent your establishment ever again if that's the case. Because I don't need to spend my money at your establishment. But the problem comes where sometimes in BIM, there's just 1 or 2 places that sell the specific thing that people need. They don't have competition. If they had competition, then they wouldn't be getting also. Here in Canada, if we want a service and let's say we don't get the treatment we want, then we can go to another business that have the same product. Or
Exactly.
sometimes they know that their product is in competition. They have several businesses that are selling the same product, and so they want to push um, that customer service, that positive, nice customer service as much as possible, so that the person can come back. But when you only have a place where you have 1 or 2 people selling the same thing, of course you're not going to feel the need to be nice to people because you feel people need to frequent your business.
It's true.
So my thing is just, we need to take a step back because you don't want it to have a negative effect of the same of the country, because there are some people that might have a negative experience with 1 or 2 businesses and they'll call the entire country bad because of it.
True.
If you're visiting, you have a bad experience at Chafet. I got called Chafet. I love me some Chafet. But let's say you have a bad experience at Chafet, right? And you have a bad experience at Chicken Barn, then they're gonna go home and say, oh my God, the people in Barbados are horrible.
True.
They treat people crappy. Like, I wouldn't recommend going there. I wouldn't this. I wouldn't the next. You don't know how many followers that person may have.
True.
So that's just my bit on that topic, and I think we need to really get it together when it comes again. All money is it? Well, I don't want to say all money is the same color, but all money pretty much carrying the same value, or not really the same value, but you know what I mean. Like
Again.
money talks, you know what I
Money
mean?
talks, yeah.
So this person's money is not better than this person's money. So you can't treat people unequal. It just cannot work. So, yeah.
Well, Let us know what you think about this video. Leave a comment letting us know how you think customer service is in your country. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time,
Bye.
bye.